This is a podcast of Rivista Militare, release number 3, Vertical Victory, A Piano at the Front, by Lieutenant Colonel Pierfrancesco Sampaolo.
When the United States of America entered the war in December 1941, things became difficult for Steinway & Sons, the world's most prestigious piano company. Who would have thought it would be a slightly different piano that would lift its fortunes? The outbreak of World War II required all the country's industries to support the war effort, including repurposing the production line. It is understandable that a factory of famous pianos encountered some difficulties. Having the necessary raw materials, such as ivory, copper, precious woods, iron, brass, etc., was also a big problem because they were either needed by the government for war industries or challenging to obtain due to the restrictions caused by the conflict. After significantly reducing their staff, Theo and W.R. Steinway at first began producing parts for military gliders. Later, they signed a contract with the National Casket Company to manufacture coffins, a very sad and unprofitable assignment. But shortly after that, Theo Steinway received a proposal he could not refuse. The U.S. government's War Production Board asked Steinway & Sons to design a piano that could be airdropped to troops at the front. Theo had 4 sons in the war and knew how important it was to boost soldiers' morale in those terrible days. So he took the assignment very much to heart. Paul H. Billhuber, one of Steinway's managers, led the project's conception by creating the GI Steinway, or, more commonly, the Victory Vertical. The first prototypes were available as early as June 1942. It was necessary to deviate from Steinway's classic, high-quality productions. There was a need for a rustic, very durable, transportable by hand, and, most importantly, playable piano. It could not be a grand piano because of its size and legs, which indeed would not have withstood impact with the ground once dropped from a B-17. It was, therefore, decided on a vertical model. The keys were made of celluloid paste instead of ivory, and a film of iron instead of copper, a material that the government had requisitioned, coated the strings of the low notes. In addition, there were carrying handles on the 4 sides so that 4 men could carry it. The piano weighed about 200 kilos. The paneling was also decidedly non-traditional. The Victory Vertical was tropicalized using glues and impregnants against termites and insects. It was also resistant to water and moisture. In addition, the piano was equipped with an internal compartment for a maintenance and tuning kit and a range of musical scores, from light music to boogie-woogie, sacred hymns, and classical music. The piano came in 3 colors: olive drab for the Army, blue for the Air Force, and gray for the Navy. In 1943, the government first ordered 405 pianos, and soon after, another 800. In 1944, orders almost doubled. The goal was to provide 4 of them for every unit deployed in the war. Anywhere in the Pacific, Europe, rear area, at home, schools, social inclusion institutions, and religious facilities. Many witnesses tell us of this instrument's great success. From the front lines to the ships to the military hospitals, many were the stories and letters of evenings spent in company singing and playing, forgetting, for a moment, the privations and horrors of war. For example, Soldier K. Cranes, a few days before he was killed by a German tank, wrote to his mother in May 1943 about a Jeep that arrived at base camp one evening with a trailer and something strange on it. There was a Victory Vertical, green like the Jeep itself. The happiness of playing it, singing with his comrades after the messing food, was an indescribable thrill. Still another soldier reported how, even after the war, he whistled the songs he had sung in those days with his fellow soldiers after receiving the piano. In terms of quality, in light of its rusticity and being cheap, the GI Steinway had many detractors, but just as many renowned musicians who instead appreciated its romantic idea, as well as its characteristic sound. More than 5,000 were produced in various colors, and Steinway continued to sell them after the war until 1953. In 1961, the captain of the nuclear submarine USS Thomas Edison wanted one in the crew mess room. The piano would remain there until the vessel was decommissioned in 1983 and then moved to the Navy Historical Center in Washington, D.C., where it remains today. A yellow advertising leaflet, made after the war, depicting a B-17 bomber and a Victory vertical read, "The Instrument of Immortals." This Steinway traveled in a flying fortress. The image almost tells that the B-17, instead of bombs, was throwing pianos. This may be an evocative way to leave behind the horrors and emphasize music's contribution to this story. Let it not be said that the Victory vertical did not do its part.
This is a podcast of Rivista Militare. See you again on the next episode.